In the busy city of Liana, the sun rose slowly over crowded streets, filling the air with the sounds of car horns, merchants calling, and children running to school. Among the crowd was a young girl named Amara, walking carefully along the cracked sidewalks. She carried only a small bag with a few books and a worn notebook. Her clothes were old and faded, and her shoes had holes that let the morning dew seep in. Yet, despite her appearance, there was a spark in her eyes, a determination that nothing could shake. Amara had not always lived on the streets. Before her parents passed away, she had a home filled with laughter, meals shared at the table, and warm blankets on cold nights. But those days were gone, and she had learned to survive alone. Even though life had become hard, she refused to let it take away her dreams. Each day she walked the long distance to school, her small bag pressing against her shoulder, carrying not just books but hope. As she entered the schoolyard, the other students immediately noticed her. They wore clean uniforms, polished shoes, and carried new backpacks that shined in the sunlight. Some of them whispered to each other and laughed when they saw Amara approaching. "Look at her shoes," one boy said, pointing at the holes in her soles. "She's wearing yesterday's clothes," another girl giggled. Amara felt their eyes on her, burning with judgment, but she did not look back. She kept her head high and walked straight to her classroom. The hallways were crowded, and some of the students pushed her aside, bumping into her roughly. A few even snatched her books as they laughed. "Why don't you just stay home?" a boy sneered. "You don't belong here." Amara did not answer. She had learned long ago that speaking back often made things worse. Instead, she took deep breaths, keeping her mind focused on the lessons that awaited her. She reminded herself that school was her way out, the path to a better life. She believed that knowledge was stronger than wealth, stronger than cruelty, and stronger than fear. Her classroom was small and plain, with wooden desks worn by years of students before her. She found her seat in the corner, away from the more popular students who had already begun whispering about her arrival. Despite their snickers and the occasional sneer, Amara took out her books and began to prepare for the first lesson of the day. She opened her notebook carefully, making sure not to tear the fragile pages, and wrote down the date, determined to make the day productive. Even though her clothes were ragged and her hair often unkempt, her mind was sharp. She answered questions quickly, sometimes earning surprised looks from her classmates. The teacher noticed her intelligence as well, though the attention often came with quiet remarks about her appearance. Still, Amara did not let these things bother her. She knew that the value of her mind would shine through eventually, even if her clothes did not. During breaks, while other students played in groups or laughed with friends, Amara often sat alone under a tree in the schoolyard. She would read her books or review her notes, using these quiet moments to study harder. Sometimes she would imagine herself in a big classroom with proper materials, or walking into a school with no judgment, where students measured each other by effort and kindness rather than the clothes on their backs. These thoughts gave her hope and kept her strong. The students who mocked her tried everything to make her feel small. They would spill water near her bag, knock over her stack of books, and whisper cruel jokes just loud enough for her to hear. "She's nothing but a street girl," one of them whispered. But each time, Amara reminded herself that these words did not define her. Her value was not in what others said or thought. It was in her courage, her determination, and her ability to keep going. Amara's life on the streets had taught her many lessons that the other children would never understand. She knew how to survive when there was no food, how to find safe places to rest, and how to carry her few belongings without losing them. She had learned patience, resilience, and the importance of thinking before acting. While others had the luxury of comfort, she had the strength that came from facing life's harsh realities every day. Even when the teachers overlooked her or ignored her requests for help, Amara did not despair. She knew that one day her hard work would speak louder than anyone's words. She would pass exams, she would graduate, and she would prove that intelligence and determination mattered more than wealth or status. This belief gave her energy to face every day, even when it started with insults and ridicule. Sometimes she would see other students who were kind to her, offering small smiles or sharing a piece of bread. Those moments were treasures to her, and she held on to them tightly. She realized that even in a world full of harshness, there were sparks of goodness that made life worthwhile. These tiny gestures reminded her that people were not all cruel, and they gave her hope that things could change. By the end of the school day, Amara's small bag was heavier with homework and notes, but her heart felt lighter. She had faced the day without breaking, without surrendering to fear or sadness. As she walked home along the busy streets, dodging vendors and cars, she imagined a future where she would have a place to sleep, a proper school uniform, and friends who respected her for who she was. These thoughts made her steps lighter, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled quietly to herself. At night, when the city grew dark and quiet, Amara would find a safe corner in an old alley or under a bridge. She would take out her books by the dim light of a street lamp and study for hours, determined to make her dreams real. She thought about her parents and what they would have wanted for her. She promised herself that she would honor their memory by becoming strong, educated, and kind. Even though the world had been cruel to her, Amara's spirit was unbroken. Each insult, each push, each laugh directed at her only made her more determined. She knew that one day people would see her not as a poor street girl, but as someone who had fought for her dreams and never given up. And so, in the busy city of Liana, Amara continued to walk to school every morning, her small bag on her shoulder, her head held high. She faced ridicule, bullying, and loneliness, yet she carried hope in her heart. She studied, she dreamed, and she believed that education could change her life. Every day she reminded herself that even when the world was cruel, courage, intelligence, and hope could never be taken away. Her journey had just begun, and though it was filled with challenges, Amara knew that her spirit would guide her. In a world that often judged by appearance, she had chosen to believe in herself, and that belief would carry her far beyond the streets of Liana. The schoolyard was crowded and noisy, filled with laughter, chatter, and the occasional shout as students played games or hurried to eat their lunches. In the corner, under the shade of a small tree, sat Amara, carefully unwrapping the small portion of food she had brought from home. It was nothing fancy, just a piece of bread and a few dried fruits, but it was enough to keep her going through the long school day. From the moment she sat down, the other students noticed her. Some whispered and pointed, smirking at her worn clothes and tattered shoes. "Look at her lunch," one boy whispered. "Does she even have a proper meal?" A girl laughed quietly, nudging her friend. "Why does she even come here? She doesn't belong." Amara lowered her head and focused on her food, trying to ignore the comments. She had learned long ago that arguing would not help, and it often made the situation worse. Her goal was to survive the day and continue her studies, not to fight with students who judged her for being different. But the humiliation did not stop with words. A group of students approached, carrying half-eaten sandwiches and small scraps of food. Without warning, one of them flicked a piece of bread toward Amara. It landed on her bag with a soft thud. She looked down at it, sighed quietly, and brushed it off. Another student knocked over her small pile of books as he passed, laughing as the pages fell onto the dirt. "Can't you keep your things together?" someone teased, laughing cruelly. Amara picked up her books carefully, one by one, smoothing out the pages. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the constant strain of defending herself against unfair treatment. She reminded herself that these students did not know her story. They did not know that she had lost her parents, that she had spent nights sleeping in alleyways, and that she had learned to survive on nothing but hope and determination. Teachers walked by occasionally, some glancing at the chaos of the schoolyard, but most seemed busy or distracted. A few noticed the laughter directed at Amara, but their attention was fleeting. She felt invisible, as if the world around her had decided she did not matter. Yet, instead of despairing, she used the feeling to strengthen herself. She promised herself that one day she would rise above these moments and show the world her true worth. Even as the students mocked her, Amara found small ways to maintain her dignity. She arranged her food neatly on a clean cloth she had carried in her bag, careful not to let the dirt touch it. She organized her books methodically, making sure every page was safe. These small acts were a way of asserting control over her life, even when others tried to make her feel powerless. Sometimes she caught glimpses of kindness amidst the cruelty. A younger student would occasionally offer her a piece of fruit, or a classmate would nod a greeting as they passed. These moments, though brief, reminded her that not everyone judged by appearances. They gave her courage to keep going, knowing that the world was not entirely without compassion. Lunch was a slow, long struggle. Each bite of food reminded her that survival was never simple. Each laugh and sneer from the other students was a reminder that life could be unfair. But each act of patience, each careful move to protect her books and her food, reinforced her resilience. Amara understood that strength was not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, and unwavering. When the bell rang to signal the end of lunch, Amara carefully packed her food and books, making sure nothing was left behind for others to mock or ruin. She walked to her next class slowly, her steps measured and calm, though inside she felt the weight of the day pressing on her shoulders. Still, she held her head high. She refused to let humiliation define her. As she entered the classroom, she found her seat in the corner, away from the more popular students who had mocked her. She opened her books and began to study, her mind sharp and focused despite the teasing she had endured. Questions asked in class no longer intimidated her. She answered with clarity and intelligence, surprising even the teacher at times. Amara's classmates, busy with their own judgments and distractions, often overlooked the quiet strength she carried. They did not realize that beneath the worn clothes and tired eyes was a spirit full of courage, patience, and determination. They did not see how she had learned to survive hardship, to face daily insults without giving up, and to keep her dreams alive despite the odds. By the time the school day ended, Amara felt both exhausted and determined. Exhausted from defending herself against daily humiliation, but determined because she knew she was learning, growing, and surviving. Every moment of ridicule, every shove or sneer, was shaping her into someone stronger, someone who could one day rise above the limitations others tried to place on her. She left the classroom carefully, collecting her books and belongings. As she walked through the crowded hallways, some students continued to whisper, but she paid them no mind. Her focus was on what lay ahead, the lessons she would study at home, the knowledge she would gain, and the life she hoped to build for herself. When she finally stepped outside, the sun was high in the sky, warming the schoolyard and drying the puddles from the morning rain. Amara walked toward the street with careful steps, her small bag slung over her shoulder. She thought of her parents and the life they had dreamed for her. She imagined a future where she could be proud of herself, not because of wealth or appearance, but because of her strength, intelligence, and courage. Even though the day had been full of humiliation, Amara felt a quiet sense of victory. She had survived, she had remained kind and patient, and she had studied even when others tried to distract or discourage her. Each small act of endurance was a step toward the life she wanted, the life she knew she deserved. As she made her way back to her small corner of the city where she slept, she promised herself again that she would not let the cruelty of others define her. Her worth was not measured by their laughter or their judgment. It was measured by her determination, her intelligence, and her courage to keep moving forward even when the world seemed harsh. And so, in the busy city of Liana, Amara continued to face every day with quiet bravery. She endured ridicule, stayed strong in the face of humiliation, and held tightly to her dreams. Beneath her worn clothes and tired eyes, her heart remained full of courage and hope, knowing that one day her spirit and determination would be recognized, and that she would rise above the judgment of others. The sky over the city of Liana had turned a deep gray by mid-afternoon, and rain began to pour down in heavy sheets. The streets quickly became rivers of water, and umbrellas opened everywhere, forming colorful dots among the gray. Most children ran for shelter or crowded under roofs, laughing and shouting as they tried to stay dry. But Amara, with her small bag and thin shoes, trudged along the wet schoolyard until she reached a large old tree near the edge of the yard. Its wide branches provided a small patch of dry space, and she crouched beneath it, shaking off the water that had soaked her hair and clothes. Despite being drenched, she opened the small book she had borrowed from the library. It was a thin paperback, pages slightly crumpled from earlier rains, but to Amara it was a treasure. She had learned long ago that knowledge was a shield, a tool, and sometimes, a companion when no one else could understand her. The words on the pages brought her into another world, far from the laughter and cruelty of her classmates, far from the cold wetness that clung to her clothes, far from the hunger in her stomach. From a distance, a black car drove slowly through the street beside the school. It stopped briefly as a young man stepped out. This was Prince Tay, a young billionaire who, despite his wealth and status, enjoyed walking the streets of the city in disguise to see life as it truly was. Today he had chosen to explore the schoolyard, curious about the people he usually did not meet in his luxurious life. He carried no guards and wore plain clothes, blending in with the passers-by, but his eyes were sharp and observant. As he walked closer to the schoolyard, his attention was caught by a small figure under the tree. A girl, soaked from head to toe, was reading quietly, completely ignoring the rain and the chaos around her. Some students nearby were still laughing, mocking her wet hair and tattered uniform, but she did not react. She only turned a page carefully, her eyes scanning the words as though the rest of the world did not exist. Prince Tay stopped for a moment, studying her. There was something remarkable about the way she ignored everything else and focused entirely on her book. Most children in the school would have been crying, complaining, or seeking shelter under a teacher's wing. But this girl, Amara, sat alone, calm and determined. He noticed the way her hands trembled slightly from the cold, yet held the book carefully. He saw the resilience in her eyes, the courage in her posture, and the patience in her quiet determination. Curiosity drew him closer. He wondered how someone so young could remain so focused under such difficult circumstances. Was she always this brave? Did she study because she had to, or because she wanted to? The rain began to fall heavier, drumming on the leaves above her, but she continued to read, her eyes bright and alert. There was no fear, no complaint, only the determination to learn. Prince Tay felt a rare sense of admiration. In all the schools he had visited, he had never seen a child who held herself with such quiet dignity in the face of adversity. He watched as she turned another page, her lips moving slightly as she read the words aloud in her mind. Despite her thin frame and wet clothes, she radiated strength and intelligence. Nearby, some of the other students continued to tease her. They splashed water, threw scraps of food, and whispered insults, trying to disturb her. Yet she did not flinch. Each time the laughter rang out, she only looked down at her book, her mind fixed on the story and the lessons she could learn. Her focus was like a shield against the cruelty around her, and Prince Tay could not help but be impressed by her resilience. He decided to step closer, careful not to startle her. As he approached, he noticed the layers of dirt on her shoes, the slight trembling in her hands, and the faint smell of wet earth mixed with rain. But all of these things made him respect her even more. She had not complained once, had not begged for help, and had not run away. She had faced the storm with courage and continued to read, to learn, and to hold on to hope. For a moment, he simply watched her, taking in the contrast between her difficult life and the richness of the world he was accustomed to. He realized that wealth and status could not create the kind of patience and intelligence he saw in her. Her spirit was stronger than the comforts and luxuries he had always known. He felt a strange admiration, an awareness that this girl had something rare, a strength that money could never buy. Amara finally noticed someone standing nearby, a stranger in plain clothes who was observing her quietly. She looked up, her eyes meeting his. There was no fear in her gaze, only cautious curiosity. She tilted her head slightly, waiting for him to speak, but her focus did not break entirely from her book. She had learned that strangers could bring danger, but she had also learned not to judge intentions too quickly. Prince Tay smiled gently, trying to appear harmless. "Hello," he said softly. Amara blinked, still unsure, but did not move away. "My name is Prince Tay," he continued, "and I wanted to tell you that I see something very special in you. Your patience, your courage, and your intelligence, it is remarkable." Amara's eyes widened slightly. She had never received a compliment like this before. Usually, people judged her for her torn clothes or her worn shoes, not for her character or her determination. She closed her book slowly and looked at him, curiosity and a small flicker of hope mixing in her expression. The rain continued to fall around them, but for a moment the world felt quieter. The laughter of the other students faded in her mind, replaced by the gentle voice of this young man who had noticed her for who she truly was. She wondered why someone would care, why someone would see beyond her appearance to the person inside. Prince Tay continued, "I often visit places to see how people live, to understand life outside my own world. But I have never seen someone so focused, so brave, and so kind in the face of such challenges. You inspire me, Amara." Amara felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time in a long time she did not feel invisible. For the first time, someone acknowledged her courage, her determination, and her heart. She did not know who this young man really was or why he had come, but his words gave her hope. Maybe, just maybe, life could change in ways she had never imagined. As the rain slowed to a drizzle, Prince Tay stepped a little closer, keeping his voice gentle. "I would like to know you better," he said. "You have a strength that is rare. I think the world should see it too." Amara blinked, unsure what to say. She had never had anyone offer friendship, attention, or encouragement without judgment. She simply nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Perhaps, she thought, this encounter could be the beginning of something different. Something that would change her life in ways she had only dreamed of while sitting under this tree, reading her small book in the rain. And so, under the shelter of the old tree in the schoolyard, with the rain still falling lightly around them, Amara met Prince Tay. She did not yet know the full story of who he was, or the changes he would bring to her life. But she felt, for the first time in a long while, that she had been seen, that her courage and intelligence mattered, and that hope could take root even in the hardest of storms. The rain had slowed to a soft drizzle, leaving the streets of Liana wet and shiny, reflecting the dim light of the afternoon sky. Under the large tree in the schoolyard, Amara sat with her small book in her lap, still damp from the rain, when Prince Tay stepped closer. He walked slowly, making sure not to startle her. His plain clothes hid the wealth and status he carried, but the calm confidence in his steps hinted that he was someone used to being in control of his surroundings. "Hello," he said gently, his voice carrying a warmth that cut through the cold damp air. Amara looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. She had not expected anyone to talk to her with such kindness, let alone someone who seemed so confident and calm. Her heart beat quickly, not from fear, but from a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. Prince Tay smiled, noticing her hesitation. "I'm Prince Tay," he said, keeping his voice soft, like he was sharing a secret. "I know this might seem strange, but I wanted to speak to you because I see something special in you. I see who you really are." Amara blinked, unsure what to say. She had spent her life being judged for her torn shoes, worn uniform, and the life she had no control over. People had mocked her, laughed at her, and even teachers had sometimes ignored her. No one had ever said they saw her for who she truly was. She felt a mix of confusion and cautious hope stirring in her chest. "I want you to be my girlfriend," Prince Tay continued, his eyes steady and honest. "Not because of wealth, not because of your situation, but because of the person you are inside. I want to know the real Amara, the girl who is brave, patient, and strong. The girl who keeps learning even when life seems unfair. The girl who inspires me." Amara's mouth went dry. She could hardly believe her ears. No one had ever spoken to her like this, no one had ever treated her with respect and honesty. The words felt unreal, almost like a dream. Her mind raced with questions. Why would he care about her? How could someone like him notice her, a poor homeless student? Her hands shook slightly as she clutched her small book. She looked down at the pages, unsure if she should respond. Deep inside, a small voice whispered that this could be real, that this was a moment she had never imagined. Yet another part of her warned that she had been disappointed before, that people often said one thing and meant another. She hesitated, feeling the weight of disbelief and hope on her shoulders. Prince Tay waited patiently, giving her space. He understood that trust could not be forced and that she needed time to feel safe. "I know this is sudden," he said softly, "but I promise you my words are true. I am not interested in appearances or money. I want to know your heart, Amara. The one no one else has noticed until now." Amara slowly raised her eyes to meet his. She noticed the sincerity in his gaze, the way he looked at her without judgment, without expectation. There was no pressure, no hint of superiority, just respect and interest. Her chest tightened as a strange warmth spread inside her. It had been so long since someone saw her for herself and not for her circumstances. She swallowed nervously, unsure of what to say. Her lips trembled slightly as she tried to form words, but none came. Prince Tay smiled again, not in mockery but gently, as if he understood every doubt and fear in her mind. He gave her a reassuring nod, letting her know that she could take her time to respond. Amara finally found her voice, soft and cautious. I don't know what to say," she admitted. She kept her eyes on the ground, still unsure if she could trust this moment. "No one has ever treated me like this before." "That is exactly why I came to you," Prince Tay said calmly. "Because I see who you are, not what the world tells me you are. You have strength, patience, and courage. You have kept going even when others have mocked you. That is the person I want to know." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes, not from sadness, but from a mixture of relief, disbelief, and joy. Someone for the first time had recognized her true self. The years of bullying, humiliation, and loneliness felt a little lighter, as if his words were a shield that protected her from the harshness of the world. She hesitated a moment longer, thinking of all the times she had been laughed at, ignored, or insulted. Could she really trust this stranger? Could she believe that someone like him could care for her without judgment? But the way he spoke, the way he looked at her, carried an honesty she could not ignore. Slowly she smiled, a soft, cautious smile that reflected hope she had not felt in a long time. I will try," she whispered. "I will get to know you." Her voice was quiet but firm, carrying a new confidence that had begun to grow inside her over the years of struggle and study. Prince Tay's smile widened, not with arrogance but with genuine happiness. "That is all I ask," he said. "We will take it one step at a time. I want to know you and I promise to respect who you are, every single day." For the first time in a long while, Amara felt seen. The rain continued to fall softly around them, dripping from the leaves of the tree, washing away the dust and dirt of the day. She realized that this encounter might be the beginning of a change she had never imagined, a chance to be recognized for her heart, her courage, and her intelligence. As they stood together under the tree, the noise of the schoolyard seemed to fade. The laughter of mocking classmates, the whispers, and the teasing felt distant. For once, the world did not seem cruel or unfair. Instead, it felt full of possibilities, full of hope, and full of someone who truly cared about her for who she was. Amara closed her book gently and held it to her chest, feeling the weight of the moment. She looked up at Prince Tay again, meeting his eyes, and nodded. She did not yet know what the future held, but she felt a sense of trust beginning to bloom. For the first time, someone had treated her with the respect and honesty she deserved. That afternoon, under the large tree in the schoolyard, soaked from the rain but filled with a new sense of hope, Amara realized that life could change in unexpected ways. The stranger who saw her true self had offered friendship, recognition, and the beginning of something special. It was a moment that she would remember forever, a turning point that made her feel that perhaps, after all the humiliation and struggle, happiness and respect were finally within reach. The news spread quickly through the city of Liana, whispered in classrooms and shouted across the schoolyard. Amara, the once homeless girl who had faced ridicule every day, was now the girlfriend of Prince Tay. Students who had once mocked her for her torn shoes, old uniform, and quiet ways now looked at her with wide eyes and a mixture of surprise and shame. The hallways that had been filled with laughter at her expense were now quieter, as those who had bullied her realized how wrong they had been. Yet Amara did not feel the need to boast or seek revenge. She did not step into the hallways flaunting her new status or mock those who had hurt her. Instead, she walked with the same calm, humble manner she had always carried. Her focus remained on her studies, her friends, and helping others. The years of struggle had taught her patience and compassion, and she was determined to continue living with kindness, no matter how others had treated her. At school, Amara began quietly helping younger students with their lessons. She would lend her notes to those who missed class, explain math problems to those who were struggling, and encourage everyone to work hard and believe in themselves. The same students who had laughed at her now watched in awe as she offered guidance and support to anyone in need. Some of them even felt ashamed, realizing how cruel their behavior had been. Prince Tay, who remained by her side, did not interfere with her school life. Instead, he supported her quietly, providing encouragement and helping her focus on her dreams. He admired her humility and the way she treated everyone with respect, no matter their social status. He knew that her strength came from her character, not from his wealth, and he encouraged her to use her story to inspire others. Amara's days were busy but fulfilling. She continued to study hard, staying late in the library after classes to finish her homework and prepare for exams. She would walk through the hallways, smiling at students who had once ignored her, offering words of encouragement instead of judgment. Slowly, the school community began to see her not as the poor homeless student, but as a girl of courage, intelligence, and kindness. The students who had bullied her initially felt uncomfortable around her at first. They avoided looking directly at her, feeling guilty for their past behavior. Over time, some of them began to approach her quietly, asking for advice on their studies or apologizing for the way they had treated her. Amara accepted these gestures with grace, teaching them that humility and forgiveness were stronger than anger or pride. With Prince Tay's encouragement, Amara also began sharing her story more widely. She spoke about the challenges she had faced, the importance of perseverance, and how education could change lives. She visited local schools and community centers, telling children that their circumstances did not define them. Her story became a beacon of hope for many who were struggling, showing that courage, hard work, and kindness could lead to success and recognition. Life with Prince Tay did not change her values. She remained grounded and focused, never forgetting her humble beginnings. Though she now had access to resources and opportunities she had only dreamed of before, she continued to walk the streets she knew, helping those in need, visiting schools, and encouraging students who felt invisible or weak. She believed that true success was not measured by wealth, but by the difference one could make in the lives of others. Her parents, who had once ignored her struggles, also learned of her new life. They were humbled when they saw how she had grown into a young woman of courage and integrity. They realized that wealth and status mattered less than heart and determination, and they felt proud of the person she had become. As the weeks passed, Amara's influence grew. She became a role model for many students who had once laughed at her. They saw her as a symbol of hope, demonstrating that one could rise above cruelty and hardship without losing humility or compassion. The lessons she had learned from life on the streets, patience, resilience, and kindness, became the very lessons she now shared with others. Prince Tay remained a steady presence in her life, supporting her choices without overshadowing her independence. He admired her ability to stay true to herself, to continue learning, and to help others, all while navigating the complexities of her new life. Together, they became a team, combining his resources with her determination to make positive changes in their community. Amara never forgot the students who had once bullied her. Instead of holding grudges, she used her experiences to teach the value of empathy. She spoke to them privately when needed, helping them understand that cruelty only harmed others and themselves. Her actions inspired a shift in the school's atmosphere, gradually turning it into a more supportive and respectful environment. Despite the attention her relationship with Prince Tay brought, Amara remained humble. She still wore simple clothes at school, carried her small bag and treated everyone equally. Wealth and status had not changed who she was at her core. Instead, they gave her a platform to help more people, to reach more students, and to share the lessons she had learned the hard way. Every day she remembered her own struggles, the loneliness, the hunger, the ridicule, and she used those memories as motivation to help others. She made it her mission to ensure that no student felt invisible or unwanted. Her courage, patience, and dedication became an example that everyone in the school and community could follow. As months went by, Amara's story spread beyond her school, reaching other parts of the city and even neighboring towns. Children and young adults listened to her speak at community events, inspired by the young girl who had faced homelessness, bullying, and hardship, and had risen with dignity, courage, and kindness. With Prince Tay's support, Amara was able to continue her education without worry, focusing on her goals and dreams. But more importantly, she used her success not just for herself, but to uplift others. She showed that wealth was not the key to respect or happiness. Character, hard work, and compassion were far more valuable. And so, Amara transformed not only her own life but the lives of everyone around her. She proved that even in the face of hardship, cruelty, and invisibility, one could rise with strength, humility, and hope. Her journey became a testament to the power of courage, kindness, and perseverance, showing that true change comes from the heart, not from wealth or appearances.